A human soldier arrived, and the alien Empress whispered her mate's name. The air was heavy with a strange, metallic scent, and the sky glowed with a pale lavender hue streaked with green auroras that danced across the horizon. His boots made soft thuds on the polished stone tiles, and the soft hum of the landing ship faded behind him. For a moment, all he could hear was the wind whispering through the jagged crystal towers that rose like jagged teeth from the planet's surface. Kane was no stranger to alien worlds. He had seen planets with scorching deserts, oceans of acid, and skies darkened by toxic clouds. Yet Zithra felt different. It was alive. He could feel it in his bones in the way the ground seemed to vibrate ever so slightly beneath his feet. There was a presence here, something intelligent, ancient, and watchful. He adjusted his helmet and checked his surroundings. The landing site was massive, a wide courtyard bordered by towers carved from shimmering crystal. The architecture was unlike anything he had ever seen, organic yet perfectly geometric, as if it had grown from the ground itself. Strange creatures, tall and slender with translucent skin, moved gracefully across the plaza. Their faces were smooth, almost featureless, but their eyes glowed softly, following his every movement. Kane's mission was simple on paper: observe the alien species, report their military and technological capabilities, and leave. But something told him this mission would not remain simple for long. A soft vibration ran through his helmet, signaling an incoming message. He tapped the side panel, and the holographic display projected a calm, melodic voice. "Captain Elias Kane, you are expected. Proceed to the central spire for formal introduction to Empress Lysara." Kane frowned. The voice sounded neutral, almost gentle, but there was an undertone that made his chest tighten. Empress Lysara. He had read about her in intelligence briefings. The ruler of Zithra, a being whose mind was rumored to extend far beyond her physical form, capable of perceiving thoughts, emotions, even intentions. A dangerous ruler, yes, but also one of the most intelligent beings in the galaxy. He took a deep breath and moved forward. The crystal towers reflected the lavender sky, sending prismatic lights dancing across his armor. He wondered briefly what kind of life could have evolved on a planet like this. Humans had conquered the stars with tools, courage, and determination, but here the rules seemed different. Zithra had its own rhythm, its own laws. He felt like a small pebble dropped into a vast river. As he approached the central spire, the air grew warmer. Kane could feel a faint vibration in the ground, almost like the heartbeat of the planet itself. A massive door, carved from a single piece of dark crystal, slid open silently as he reached it. He entered a hall bathed in soft, glowing light, the walls etched with symbols that shimmered and shifted when he looked at them. At the center of the hall, a figure waited. She was tall, even taller than the tallest Zithurian he had seen outside, with flowing garments that seemed to ripple like liquid. Her skin was pale with a faint luminescence, and her eyes were deep pools of green light that seemed to look not just at him, but into him. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice a melodic hum that resonated directly in his mind, bypassing his ears entirely. Kane froze for a moment. He had heard of telepathic rulers, but experiencing it was different. Her voice felt intimate, like she was speaking to a part of him he didn't know existed. I am honored to meet you, Empress Lysara," Kane replied, keeping his tone steady despite the strange sensation curling through his mind. She inclined her head slightly, as if acknowledging his words, but her gaze never wavered. "You have traveled far, human. Your kind is rare among the stars. Tell me, what is it that drives you to journey so far from your home?" Kane thought for a moment. Most humans would have said duty or orders, but he sensed that such an answer would seem hollow here. "Curiosity," he said finally, "and the need to understand, not just to conquer. Humanity has always thrived when we learn from the unknown." The Empress studied him. Then, almost imperceptibly, she whispered a name, not aloud, but in a way that brushed against Kane's consciousness like a soft breeze. Elias Kane. He felt a shiver run down his spine. She couldn't know his name, not like this. Yet it was clear she had just whispered it, or something like it. He shook his head slightly, dismissing it as a trick of his own imagination. "Your presence here is unusual," Lysara continued. "Most who come to Zithra are not welcomed." "I understand," Kane said. "I am aware that my arrival may raise questions. I come as an observer, not an invader. My mission is to learn, not to harm." Lysara's eyes seemed to soften for a fraction of a second. Humans are clever, she said. Clever and unpredictable, it is intriguing. Kane's mind raced. He had been trained for diplomacy, for combat, for survival. But this was something entirely different. He was not just facing an alien species, he was facing a mind that could see parts of him he didn't even understand. Before he could respond, a group of Zithurian guards entered the hall. They were tall, with flowing robes and crystalline weapons that hummed softly. They surrounded Kane, not aggressively, but with clear authority. "Do not be alarmed," Lysara said. "They are here to ensure that nothing unforeseen occurs. You will have no harm, but you will be tested." "Tested?" Kane asked, eyeing the guards warily. "A ruler must know who walks into her domain," Lysara said, "and Zithra has certain traditions. Your abilities, your mind, your courage, they will all be observed." Kane nodded slowly. He had faced hostile worlds, armed rebels, and alien beasts, but something about Zithra felt different. The challenge here was not brute strength. It was understanding, intuition, and the delicate balance between respect and caution. The guards led him through a series of corridors that seemed to stretch infinitely. Kane noticed the walls were alive with faintly glowing veins of energy, pulsing gently. Occasionally, he caught glimpses of Zithurian citizens walking these halls. They moved with grace, their faces calm and composed, yet their eyes followed him with curiosity. Humans were a rare sight, and he knew he stood out. Finally, they arrived at a large chamber. The ceiling was impossibly high, and the walls glimmered with holographic patterns that shifted and changed depending on the angle. At the center of the chamber was a platform, and on it, a strange device that Kane couldn't immediately identify. It seemed to hum in sync with the planet itself. "This," Lysara said, stepping beside him, "is the Hall of Trials. It is here that we observe the worthiness of those who enter our domain. You will not fight as you would in battle. Your mind, your courage, and your human ingenuity will be your weapons." Kane swallowed hard. He had trained for wars of strategy and combat, but he had never faced a trial that tested his mind against an alien civilization's standards. Yet, he felt a spark of excitement. This was why humans survived in the stars, their ability to adapt, to think differently, to challenge what seemed impossible. Lysara's gaze met his again. "Step forward, human. Let Zithra see what drives your kind." Kane took a deep breath and stepped onto the platform. Instantly, the floor beneath him began to glow, projecting images into the air. Scenes of alien history, conflicts, and puzzles designed to test comprehension, perception, and reasoning. He realized that every step he took, every choice he made would be observed. Not just for skill, but for character. Hours seemed to pass in moments. Kane solved problems the Zithurians considered complex, using logic, creativity, and intuition in ways that even the holographic projections seemed to pause and register. He discovered patterns in the history of Zithra, predicted outcomes of conflicts, and navigated mental mazes with a combination of human ingenuity and instinct. Finally, the platform dimmed, and Kane found himself once again facing Lysara. She was still, her eyes glowing with intensity. "You have done well, human," she said softly. "Far better than I expected. Perhaps there is truth in the whispers of the prophecy." Kane blinked. Prophecy, whispers. He had no idea what she meant, but the weight in her words was unmistakable. Something ancient was at play here, something that connected him to this planet in ways he could not yet comprehend. Before he could ask, Lysara turned and gestured to the halls beyond. "Rest now. Tomorrow your journey truly begins, and human, your name carries weight here, whether you understand it or not." As Kane walked back to his quarters, he could not shake the feeling that Zithra had already claimed a part of him. The planet, the Empress, even the strange whispers of his own name, they all hinted at something greater. A challenge, yes, but also a destiny. And Captain Elias Kane knew one thing with certainty. Humans had survived the stars by rising to challenges far beyond their understanding. And Zithra was about to become the next test. Empress Lysara sat upon her throne in the grand chamber of the central spire, her long fingers tracing the patterns of light on the crystalline surface before her. The whispers of prophecy, long buried in Zithra's history, echoed faintly in her mind. For centuries, the texts had spoken of a being from the stars who would arrive and change the destiny of her people. And now, that being stood before her, a human named Elias Kane. The thought unsettled her. Humans were unpredictable. They were clever, yes, but reckless in ways her people rarely understood. Yet there was something in Cain that called to her attention, something ancient, something the prophecy itself seemed to recognize. She leaned forward, her glowing eyes narrowing. "Could it truly be him?" she whispered, though no one in the chamber could hear. Her advisors remained in the shadows, as silent and still as statues, waiting for her command. "Your Majesty," said the head advisor, a tall Zithurian named Valor, his voice smooth and careful. "He is a human. To trust him fully would be unprecedented. His kind has no understanding of our traditions, our ways, or the delicate balance we maintain here." Lysara turned her gaze toward him. "And yet he has passed the first trial. His mind is quick, his reasoning precise. He has shown courage, a quality often missing even among our own people. Is that not worthy of consideration?" Valor hesitated. "It is remarkable. But he remains a stranger. Even now, I feel the undercurrent of uncertainty. Humans are capable of great innovation, but also great chaos. What if he is not what the prophecy describes?" The Empress's eyes narrowed further. She could feel it, the pull in her mind, the faint echo of his name in her thoughts. Elias Cain. The syllables seemed to hum with meaning, as if the universe itself had chosen them. She rose from her throne, moving gracefully to a window that overlooked the city of Zithra below. The streets shimmered with energy, populated by citizens who moved with the harmony and precision of a species attuned to its own rhythm. But below the surface, there were whispers of discontent. Factions within Zithra's military and political circles were plotting, their ambitions growing with every passing day. A coup was not impossible. "If he is truly the one," Lysara murmured to herself, "he will not only survive the tests of my people, but he may also become an instrument to preserve Zithra." Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock. Valor re-entered, accompanied by a small group of guards. "Majesty, the human requests audience," he said. "He wishes to understand more about our culture, our history, and perhaps our vulnerabilities." Lysara studied him, curiosity flickering in her glowing eyes. "Very well," she said. "Bring him before me." Moments later, Cain was escorted into the throne room. His armor was slightly scuffed from the Hall of Trials, but his posture remained confident. He stopped before the Empress, bowing slightly out of respect. "You requested to see me?" Lysara asked, her voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. Cain nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty, I seek understanding, to know your people, your ways, and to ensure that my presence here brings no harm." Lysara's gaze swept over him. Humans were unusual in so many ways. They relied on intuition and creativity in situations where her people would rely on protocol and calculation. That combination made them dangerous and valuable. "You are clever, human," she said finally. "Your mind approaches problems differently than ours, yet you must understand that Zithra is a fragile balance of power and order. One wrong step, one misunderstanding, and the consequences could be catastrophic." "I understand, Empress," Cain replied. "And I will do my best to honor your trust. Humans have always survived the stars by learning quickly, adapting, and respecting the forces around them. I mean no offense, and I seek only to help where I can." Lysara studied him for a long moment. "Help, yes. But can I trust you fully? That is the question. Humans are clever, yes, but unpredictable, and there are those among my own people who would see your presence as a threat." Cain hesitated, then spoke with calm conviction. "I am a soldier. I have faced battles that seemed impossible, but I have also learned that strength alone does not win wars. Understanding, strategy, and courage do. If you allow me, I will do my best to protect your people, not for glory, but because it is the right thing to do." There was a flicker of something in Lysara's eyes, a mixture of curiosity, caution, and hope. Perhaps this human truly was different. Perhaps he was the one the prophecy spoke of. "Very well," she said. "There are forces within Zithra that you have not yet encountered. Factions that plot against me, seeking to seize power through violence. If what you say is true, human, then your mind and your courage may be useful." Cain felt a surge of awareness. This was no longer just an observation mission. This was a test of loyalty, ingenuity, and character. "I will do what I can, Empress," he said. "Show me what must be done." Lysara inclined her head. "First, you must understand Zithra's history, our culture, and the threats that linger in the shadows. You will not learn this through words alone. You will witness it, experience it, and navigate it with your own choices. Are you prepared?" "I am," Cain replied, determination in his voice. For the next several hours, Lysara guided him through the palace. showing him the records of Zithra's past conflicts, the technological advancements of her people, and the delicate balance that had kept the empire stable for centuries. Cain absorbed the information quickly, asking questions that revealed both his curiosity and his strategic mind. He noticed subtle tensions among the palace staff. Some avoided his gaze, others watched him intently. It was clear that not all Zithurians welcomed his presence. Some whispered to each other when they thought he could not hear, and Cain realized that internal politics were as dangerous here as any external threat. During a pause in their tour, Lysara spoke again, her voice softer now. "Elias, Cain, do you feel it? The pull." Cain tilted his head. "Pull." "The connection," she explained. "Between your kind and mine, the prophecy, it speaks of a being from the stars who will arrive when Zithra faces its greatest peril. I have waited for centuries, guided by whispers in the mind, for someone like you." Cain felt a strange shiver run down his spine. This was more than an observation mission. It was destiny, though he did not yet fully understand it. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "I do not know what fate has in store, but I can promise this: I will not turn away from the challenge. If my presence can help protect your people, I will do whatever is necessary." Lysara's eyes glowed brighter, the intensity of her psychic presence pressing against his mind like a gentle wind. "Perhaps you are more than a visitor, human. Perhaps you are the one who will shape the future of Zithra." Before Cain could respond, an alarm echoed through the palace. A squad of elite Zithurian guards ran past, their crystalline weapons humming. Lysara's advisors looked tense, and Cain immediately understood something was happening. "Show me," he said, ready for action. "They are rebels," Lysara said, her tone urgent. "A faction that seeks to overthrow the throne. They strike quickly, without warning. If they succeed, the balance of Zithra will be shattered." Cain's mind raced. He had faced enemies before, but this was different. He was not merely defending himself. He was stepping into the heart of a civilization, protecting its ruler and possibly proving the prophecy true. "Take me to them," Cain said, moving toward the exit. Lysara hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. But understand, Elias Cain, this is more than battle. You must navigate their cunning, their strategy, and their desire for power. Your human intuition may be your greatest weapon." As they moved toward the palace courtyard, Cain's heart pounded, not with fear but with the thrill of challenge. Humans had survived countless dangers by thinking differently, by daring to act where others hesitated. Here on Zithra, he would have to do the same. The courtyard was alive with tension. Shadows moved along the walls, and Cain could see the figures of armed rebels blending with the architecture. He assessed the scene quickly, using every lesson he had learned in human warfare, every instinct honed over years of service. "Prepare yourself," Lysara whispered, her psychic presence brushing against his mind. "The choices you make now will shape the fate of Zithra, and perhaps the destiny of us both." Cain nodded. His hand rested on the hilt of his sidearm, but he knew that weapons alone would not win this fight. His mind, his courage, and his ingenuity would be his greatest tools. And for the first time since leaving Earth, he felt truly alive. The courtyard of the central spire was a place of both beauty and danger. Crystalline towers gleamed in the soft lavender light, their surfaces reflecting and refracting the glow of Zithra's twin suns. But beauty could not hide the threat lurking in the shadows. Captain Elias Cain surveyed the scene, noting the movement of armed figures weaving among the structures. His human instincts told him this was more than a random attack. It was a coordinated strike. "Rebels," Lysara whispered in his mind, her presence sharp and alert. "They have chosen the wrong moment to challenge Zithra." Cain's hand rested lightly on his sidearm, but he knew weapons alone would not win this fight. These rebels were skilled, but humans were clever in ways that even the most precise aliens often underestimated. He scanned the courtyard, taking note of cover, vantage points, and escape routes. His eyes flicked to the glowing energy veins running along the ground. Zithurian technology hummed beneath the surface, a powerful tool if one knew how to use it. "We need to divide them," Cain said, speaking aloud but with quiet authority. "If we force them into separate groups, we can neutralize the threat without unnecessary risk." Lysara's thoughts brushed against his mind, tinged with surprise. "Your approach is unusual, but it may work. Do what you must, human." Cain moved quickly, his boots silent on the polished stone. Using the shadows and angles of the towers, he positioned himself to appear in multiple locations, creating confusion among the rebels. His mind worked like a machine, predicting their movements, anticipating their reactions. He was not just a soldier, he was a strategist, a thinker, a human capable of improvisation. The rebels hesitated, unsure of their advantage. Cain noticed the subtle signals they gave each other, gestures, flashes of light, and minor psychic pulses. They were organized, yes, but rigid. Human unpredictability was their weakness. He seized the opportunity. Using small, harmless energy pulses from a device he had adapted from his ship, Cain created distractions that made the rebels believe he was in different locations at once. Sparks of light danced along the crystalline towers, and shadows seemed to move independently. The rebels split, each group trying to respond to threats that were not real. Lysara watched from above, her curiosity growing into admiration. Humans, she realized, did not rely solely on strength. They relied on creativity, intuition, and courage, qualities that could challenge even the most disciplined forces. One rebel leader, larger and more imposing than the others, noticed Cain's tactics and tried to coordinate a counterattack. Cain anticipated this, leading him into a narrow passageway between two towers. The walls pulsed with latent energy, which Cain manipulated using a small device he had designed from Zithurian tech. A soft energy field formed, blocking the rebel's advance without harming him and forcing him to retreat. Lysara's mind brushed against his again. You think quickly, human, faster than my own people would in this situation. It is impressive. Cain allowed himself a small nod, though his focus never wavered. They are not invincible. They rely on tradition and rules. I rely on possibilities. As the battle continued, Cain moved through the courtyard, coordinating small groups of loyal Zithurian guards to intercept and contain the rebels. He did not attack recklessly. He studied, predicted, and guided. His human ingenuity turned a chaotic skirmish into a controlled operation. Meanwhile, Lysara descended from her observation point, her presence both commanding and reassuring. She moved alongside Cain, her psychic connection enhancing their coordination. Together, they were a force that combined human unpredictability and Zithurian precision. The largest group of rebels, realizing their plans were failing, tried a desperate maneuver. They activated a hidden energy conduit beneath the courtyard, intending to collapse part of the towers to trap Cain and the Loyalists. Cain noticed the conduit and quickly calculated a countermeasure. Using a small device, he redirected the energy harmlessly into the sky, creating a dazzling display of light that disoriented the rebels and saved the structural integrity of the towers. Lysara's eyes glowed brighter. Your human mind is extraordinary. You see paths where others see walls. The rebel forces began to falter. Cain's strategy of confusion, prediction, and adaptation had worked. The larger they tried to resist, the more they revealed their weaknesses. One by one, the groups were neutralized, not with violence but with clever maneuvers that showcased human ingenuity. Finally, only the rebel leader remained, standing in the center of the courtyard with a weapon humming with energy. He was skilled, determined, and dangerous. Cain approached cautiously, reading the man's posture and anticipating his moves. You cannot win, Cain said calmly, his voice carrying authority. Your cause is flawed and your methods are predictable. There is no need for harm. Surrender now and I will ensure your people are treated fairly. The leader hesitated. He had underestimated Cain's strategy and human adaptability. He looked around at the defeated rebels, then back at Cain and Lysara. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. Cain signaled to the loyal Zithurian guards to secure the area without unnecessary force. Lysara stepped beside Cain, her presence warm and commanding. You have done more than protect me, human, she said softly. You have protected Zithara. Cain nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Yet he knew this was only the beginning. The rebels were a symptom of a larger problem, internal division within Zithara. To truly safeguard the planet, he would need more than tactics. He would need understanding, diplomacy, and the trust of the Empress. Your strategy, it is unlike anything we have seen, Lysara continued. Humans think differently. You do not follow the rules blindly. You create possibilities where others see none. This is a gift, Elias Cain. He felt a small smile tug at his lips. We survive the stars because we adapt. We don't rely solely on strength or tradition. We use what we have, think differently, and act when necessary. That's how humans endure. For a moment, Lysara's eyes softened, and Cain saw a glimpse of something rarely displayed by the Empress, a hint of admiration, even hope. Perhaps the prophecy speaks truth. Perhaps you are not just a visitor, human, but a key to the future of Zithara. Cain's mind raced with possibilities. The prophecy was real, yes, but it was not a chain that bound him. It was a challenge that required action, ingenuity, and courage. He realized that Zithara's future depended on collaboration, not just between him and Lysara, but between humans and Zithurians. The rebel leader was escorted away under guard, and Cain took a moment to observe the courtyard. Damage was minimal, thanks to his strategies, but the psychological impact on the Zithurians was profound. They had witnessed a human not only survive, but outthink their elite forces, proving that human ingenuity could match even the most disciplined alien minds. Lysara turned to Cain. There will be those who fear you now, Elias Cain. They will doubt your intentions, question your loyalty, but they cannot deny your abilities. I understand, Empress, Cain replied. I did not come here for glory. I came to learn, to observe, and now to help. If my presence can protect your people, I will continue to serve. Lysara studied him, her glowing eyes reflecting the twin sons of Zithara. Your courage is matched only by your mind, and your heart, it is unyielding. That is what makes humans remarkable. Cain felt a strange warmth at her words. He had survived countless challenges, faced enemies across the stars, and endured hardships that would break many. Yet here, on an alien world, facing an entirely different civilization, he realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength was not just in its weapons or technology, but in its mind, its creativity, and its courage to face the unknown. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the crystalline towers, Cain and Lysara stood side by side. The courtyard, once a battlefield, was now calm. The citizens of Zithara emerged cautiously, observing the human who had changed the outcome of the day. Whispers spread among them of a human who could outthink their best strategists, who could navigate challenges with intelligence and courage. For Cain, the victory was not just tactical. It was a proof of concept, a demonstration of the potential humans held even in the face of civilizations far older and more advanced than Earth. His actions had earned respect, not through violence, but through ingenuity, courage, and decisiveness. Lysara's presence beside him reminded him that this was only the beginning. The rebellion was a symptom of deeper unrest, and the challenges to come would require not just strategy, but trust, diplomacy, and the ability to unite two worlds. Tomorrow, Lysara said softly, we begin the work of healing Zithara, but tonight, human rest, you have earned it. Cain nodded, allowing himself a moment of reprieve. As he looked out over the city, he understood that humans had survived the stars not because they were the strongest, but because they were adaptable, clever, and unafraid to confront the impossible. And tomorrow, he would need all of those qualities again. The morning sun of Zithara painted the crystalline towers with shades of gold and violet. Captain Elias Cain stood on the balcony of the central spire, watching the city stir to life below. The events of the previous day had shifted the balance of power. The rebellion had been checked, but the threat of internal division still lingered. Cain knew that the next steps would be crucial, not just to maintain order, but to unify the people and preserve the trust the Empress had shown in him. Beside him, Empress Lysara moved with her usual grace, her eyes scanning the city with quiet authority. The rebels are contained for now, she said, her voice calm but firm. But there are others, those who doubt, those who fear change. We cannot ignore them. Cain nodded. I understand. Humans survive because we adapt. We face challenges directly, but we also build alliances. Strength alone is not enough. Trust is just as important. Lysara's eyes softened as she considered his words. Your kind thinks differently. That is why you survived the stars. Perhaps that is why you are here. The plan began with intelligence gathering. Cain and Lysara convened a council of loyal Zithurian leaders, military commanders, scholars, and diplomats who had remained faithful during the initial unrest. Cain quickly noticed the subtle tension in the room. Some leaders were skeptical of a human intervening in their affairs. Others were openly curious, intrigued by the possibilities Cain represented. Listen carefully, Cain said, addressing the council. The rebellion you saw yesterday is just the beginning. There are factions within Zithara that seek power through fear and manipulation. To protect your civilization, we must act not with aggression, but with strategy. We must unite your loyalists, anticipate the moves of those who oppose us, and show the people that stability is within reach. He paused, letting his words sink in. Humans survive by seeing possibilities where others see walls. We improvise, adapt, and use the tools available. We must do the same here together. The council murmured among themselves. Lysara watched, allowing Cain to speak, knowing that his perspective, foreign, unpredictable, human, might be exactly what Zithara needed. After hours of planning, Cain led a small team through the hidden corridors of the city. His approach was simple but effective. Gather intelligence discreetly, avoid unnecessary confrontation, and use Zithurian technology in innovative ways. Cain's human adaptability allowed him to see paths the locals had overlooked, and his suggestions often prevented conflict before it began. One such instance involved a group of mid-level officials who were secretly aiding the rebels. Cain, using subtle observation and reasoning, anticipated their movements. Instead of confronting them directly, he arranged a situation where their own actions revealed their allegiance. The officials were quietly removed and re-educated under the supervision of loyalist mentors, avoiding public conflict and preventing panic among the citizens. Lysara observed Cain's methods closely. "Your mind is extraordinary," she said. "You solve problems in ways my people would not consider. There is courage here, yes, but also foresight, calculation, and adaptability." Cain smiled slightly. "Humans survive the stars because we think ahead. We don't just react, we anticipate. And sometimes the best victory is the one achieved without bloodshed." By midday, the city was calmer, though the tension lingered. Cain and Lysara moved through the streets, interacting with citizens and demonstrating unity. Cain's presence, combined with the Empress's authority, began to shift public perception. Humans, once unknown and potentially feared, were now seen as allies, capable of ingenuity and courage that could complement Zithurian wisdom. That afternoon, Cain and Lysara returned to the central spire to review their next move. "The rebels are still organized," Lysara said. "If they regroup, they could strike again. We must prepare." Cain nodded. "We need a plan that combines your technology, my strategies, and the loyalty of the people. We cannot just defend. We must anticipate, outthink, and neutralize the threat before it arises." Together, they began designing a series of contingency plans. Cain suggested using Zithurian surveillance networks in new ways, deploying small teams to monitor critical areas, and using energy barriers to protect key points without alarming the citizens. Lysara adapted these ideas, enhancing them with her own understanding of Zithurian energy and communication systems. As evening approached, the first signs of rebellion's regrouping became clear. Small groups of rebels attempted to mobilize in the outskirts of the city. Cain quickly analyzed their movements and predicted their next target, the energy hub that powered several of the city's districts. "We cannot allow them to disrupt the city," Cain said. "If they succeed, chaos will spread and even loyalists may panic. We need to act now." Lysara nodded, her psychic presence merging subtly with Cain's awareness. "We will confront them, but not with brute force. Strategy and precision will be our weapons." Using a combination of human improvisation and Zithurian technology, Cain and the loyalist forces set up a series of traps and diversions. Holographic projections created the illusion of larger forces in multiple locations. Energy fields guided the rebels into controlled corridors, where they could be contained without serious harm. When the rebels arrived at the energy hub, they were met not with overwhelming firepower, but with carefully designed obstacles that blocked their path and funneled them into areas where they could be safely apprehended. Cain's strategy relied on prediction, psychology, and the disciplined use of resources, hallmarks of human ingenuity. The confrontation was swift and decisive. No lives were lost, and the rebels were captured efficiently. Cain ensured that each was treated fairly, understanding that respect and justice were essential to preventing future unrest. Lysara turned to Cain afterward, her glowing eyes reflecting relief and admiration. "You have done more than defend Zithara. You have shown my people that courage and wisdom can work together. You have united us." Cain shook his head. "I did what humans do. We survive by thinking, by adapting, and by working with others." Your people have the strength and wisdom. I merely helped guide it in a different direction." The Empress smiled faintly, a rare display of warmth. "Perhaps the prophecy was correct. Perhaps you were meant to be here, not just as a visitor, but as a partner. Together, we may shape a future where Zithra thrives, and humans are no longer strangers among the stars." The citizens of Zithra, who had watched the events unfold from their homes, began to murmur among themselves. The human soldier had proven his worth, not through violence, but through intelligence, courage, and fairness. Word spread quickly, and by nightfall, Kane's reputation as a brilliant strategist and problem-solver had reached far beyond the palace walls. As Kane and Lysara walked through the city streets, they saw glimpses of hope. Children watching with curiosity, elders nodding in approval, and citizens who had once doubted now expressing cautious optimism. Kane realized that human ingenuity was not just about tactics and strategy. It was about inspiring confidence and trust, even in the most alien of worlds. That night in the central spire, Kane reflected on the day's events. Humans had survived the stars through adaptability, creativity, and courage. Here, on Zithra, he had applied those same qualities in an alien environment, earning the trust of an entire civilization and the admiration of its ruler. Lysara approached him, her expression serious but thoughtful. "The rebellion may be quelled for now," she said, "but there are still forces that seek to challenge us. Your presence has changed the course of events, human, but the true test is yet to come." Kane nodded. "I am ready. Humans face impossible odds every day and we adapt. The challenges may grow, but we will face them together. That is how we survive and how we thrive." Lysara's eyes glowed softly, a sign of approval and perhaps something deeper. "Tomorrow, we will begin the work of reforming Zithra's governance, strengthening the bonds among our people, and preparing for the threats beyond our borders. Together, human, we will shape a future worth defending." Kane looked out over the city one last time before retiring for the night. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky ablaze with auroras that shimmered like ribbons of light. He thought of Earth, of the countless humans who had ventured into the stars, and of the resilience that had brought them this far. Zithra was now part of that journey, and he knew that the path ahead would test not just his courage, but the very essence of what it meant to be human. For now, however, he allowed himself a moment of peace. Humans survived, humans adapted, and humans endured. And tomorrow he would continue to prove why. The city of Zithra was quiet at dawn, but the calm was deceptive. Captain Elias Kane and Empress Lysara stood together in the central spire, overlooking the crystalline streets below. Loyalist forces were positioned throughout the city, prepared for the inevitable final challenge. Kane had studied every possible route, anticipated every move, and prepared strategies that combined human ingenuity with Zithurian technology. Today, the remaining rebel factions would either surrender or be defeated. Lysara turned to him, her glowing eyes filled with determination. "Elias Kane, today we face those who would destroy the stability of Zithra. Are you ready?" Kane nodded. "I am." Humans face impossible odds all the time. We adapt, we think differently, and we act when necessary. Today will be no different. The first signs of the rebels appeared at the outskirts of the city, moving swiftly and silently. Kane's mind worked quickly, analyzing their numbers, formations, and likely objectives. They were more organized than the previous attempts, aware of the tactics used before. But humans had a way of seeing what others could not. Kane spotted a weakness. The rebels were relying on predictable patterns, their movements guided by fear and anger rather than creativity. He turned to Lysara. "We need to divide them again, but this time, we need to make them think they control the battlefield while we guide them into traps. Precision and foresight will win this fight." The Empress nodded, her mind aligning with his through their psychic connection. "Do it." "I trust your judgment, human." Kane moved through the city with a small team of loyalists, placing holographic projections and energy fields that created illusions of larger forces. Rebel scouts reported positions that did not exist, forcing their leaders to make mistakes. Kane anticipated every reaction, every diversion, and every attempt to outmaneuver him. As the main rebel force entered the city center, Kane and Lysara struck simultaneously. The human strategy was simple but brilliant: guide, confuse, and isolate. Rebels were funneled into narrow streets and open plazas, where loyalist forces could intervene without unnecessary violence. Energy fields controlled their movements, and holographic duplicates made them hesitate, unsure of what was real. The largest rebel leader, a Zithurian general who had once commanded loyal troops, confronted Cain directly. His weapon hummed with intense energy, and his stance was aggressive. Cain approached calmly, reading his posture, anticipating his next move. "You cannot win, human," the rebel leader said, his voice echoing with authority. "Your strategies are clever, but your kind is limited. Zithra belongs to us." Cain studied him for a moment. "Zithra belongs to its people," he said firmly. "Not to fear, not to ambition, and not to chaos. You can still choose the right path. Lay down your weapon, and no harm will come to you." The general hesitated, but the illusions Cain had created made him uncertain. Loyalist forces closed in, surrounding him without threatening violence. Cain's human adaptability had turned the battlefield into a place where logic and courage overpowered brute strength. With a final glance at Cain, the general lowered his weapon. The remaining rebels followed, their resistance collapsing without further bloodshed. Cain's plan had worked. Precision, foresight, and human ingenuity had neutralized the threat without unnecessary harm. Lysira descended from her observation point, standing beside Cain. "You have done it, Elias Cain. Zithra is safe and the rebellion has ended." Cain shook his head. "We did it together. Humans alone would not have succeeded. Zithurians alone might have struggled. But together, we adapted, we solved problems, and we protected the people. That is why humans survive." The Empress's gaze softened, a rare smile lighting her face. "Perhaps the prophecy was true. Perhaps you were meant to arrive, not as a stranger, but as a key to the future of Zithra." Cain felt a strange warmth in her words. The prophecy, the whispers, and the strange pull he had felt since arriving all converged into a single truth. His presence here was no accident. His courage, intelligence, and adaptability had changed the course of an entire civilization. As the city recovered, Cain and Lysira moved among the citizens. People came forward, curious and cautious, yet eager to see the human who had outthought the rebellion. Cain greeted them with humility, answering questions and showing respect for their culture. The people of Zithra, once wary of humans, now saw a being who represented ingenuity, courage, and fairness. One citizen, a young Zithurian girl, approached Cain. "Will humans stay here?" she asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Cain knelt to meet her gaze. "Humans are far from home, but we learn from new worlds. We may stay to help if needed, but the most important thing is that Zithra thrives. And today, your people have shown that strength and wisdom can overcome any challenge." The girl smiled, and Cain felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Humans survived because they adapted, worked with others, and faced challenges without fear. Today, that same principle had protected an entire civilization. That evening, Cain and Lysira convened the council once more. "The threat has passed," Cain said, "but the work is not finished. Zithra must reform, strengthen bonds among its people, and prepare for any challenges beyond its borders. Strategy alone will not protect the planet. Unity and trust will." Lysira added, "Your human insight has been invaluable, Elias Cain. You have shown us that courage and intelligence, combined with respect and fairness, can reshape a society. Zithra is stronger now because of your presence." Cain felt humbled. "Humans survive by learning, adapting, and helping where we can. Zithra has the wisdom, the technology, and the people to thrive. I only offered a perspective that your civilization had not considered. Together, we have ensured its future." As the council ended, Lysira and Cain walked to the balcony once more. The twin suns of Zithra had set, leaving the sky ablaze with auroras that shimmered like ribbons of light across the horizon. Cain looked out at the city, at the people he had helped protect, and at the Empress who had trusted him when others doubted. "You've changed Zithra," Lysira said softly, her gaze fixed on him, "and perhaps it has changed you as well." Cain smiled faintly. "I have learned much, Empress. Humans survive the stars not just by strength, but by courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to face the unknown. Zithra has reminded me why we endure, and why we must continue to do so." The Empress's eyes glowed with an intensity that Cain could feel in his mind. "And now, Elias Cain, the prophecy speaks your name openly. You are no longer a stranger. You are part of Zithra's destiny. Perhaps you are my mate, as the whispers foretold." Cain felt a shiver run down his spine. The words were both shocking and profound. The connection he had sensed since arrival, the strange pull in her mind, the whispers of his name, now made sense. It was not just a prophecy of survival or strategy. It was a prophecy of partnership, unity, and shared destiny. "I do not fully understand," Cain said honestly, "but I respect it, Empress. Whatever the future holds, I will do my best to honor the trust you have shown me." Lysara reached out, her hand brushing against his. The psychic connection between them strengthened, a bond of respect, understanding, and unspoken promise. "Then we face the future together," she said. Over the following days, Cain helped implement reforms that strengthened the unity of Scythera. Loyalist leaders were elevated, communication networks improved, and citizens were reassured that their voices mattered. Cain's presence symbolized cooperation between humans and Zithurians, a living example that intelligence, courage, and respect could overcome fear and division. As the planet healed, Cain reflected on what had transpired. Humans survived the stars because they adapted, because they thought differently, and because they faced challenges with courage and creativity. Here on Scythera, those same qualities had changed the course of a civilization, saved countless lives, and fulfilled a prophecy that had waited centuries. One evening, as Cain walked through the streets alongside Lysara, citizens came forward to offer thanks. Some bowed, some nodded, and some simply smiled. Cain realized that the impact of his actions would ripple far beyond this moment. Humans were no longer strangers among the stars. They were partners, allies, and protectors when courage and ingenuity were required. Finally, Cain and Lysara stood atop the highest tower of the central spire, overlooking the city in peace. The auroras danced across the sky, painting the world in colors that seemed almost alive. Cain felt a sense of calm he had rarely experienced. The danger had passed, the rebellion defeated, and the prophecy realized. "You have proven humans are more than what we expected," Lysara said. "Clever, courageous, adaptable, and capable of shaping the future of worlds." Cain smiled. "We survive by facing the unknown and by helping where we can. Today, Scythera is stronger because humans and Zithurians work together. Tomorrow, we face new challenges, but I am ready." The Empress nodded, her eyes glowing softly. "Then let the future begin, Elias Cain. Together, we will protect this world, guide its people, and ensure that Scythera thrives." Cain looked out over the city, feeling the weight of responsibility, the thrill of achievement, and the spark of destiny. Humans had endured countless dangers across the stars, and now, on Scythera, they had proven once again that courage, ingenuity, and determination could overcome even the most formidable challenges. And as the stars glimmered above, Cain knew one truth with certainty: humans were not just survivors. They were catalysts for change, partners in destiny, and a force the universe could never ignore. Scythera was safe. The rebellion was gone. The prophecy was fulfilled. And a human soldier had changed the fate of a world.